Time for the hot picks section of the program, and today we're going to talk about retail stocks with the consumer in focus, especially with back to school and some uncertainty around the economy. Zach Warring is an equity research analyst at CFRA and joins us to talk a little bit more about some of the companies that are on his watch list. Zachary, great to have you back with us here on BNN Bloomberg. Let's just start with, when you're looking at retailers, and obviously retailing is a fickle industry, what goes into your analysis of what kinds of stocks might make for good picks for a portfolio?
Yeah, so, we're fundamental analysts, so we really are paying attention to valuation, but, there's a lot going on in the world right now. You've got, obviously, the tariff environment and the impact there. So you've got companies with, a lot of exposure to the U.S. They've struggled in recent months just because, the majority of their sales are going to be tariffed at a higher rate than last year. And then, obviously, you've got valuations for those companies that have come down significantly. So it's a little bit, right now it's kind of a mix of, valuation, who's, kind of more insulated from tariffs. But overall, you're really still looking for those brands that have momentum. And some of those companies you'll kind of see in our top picks.
Okay, well, let's go into these three names that you've brought to the table today. We'll start with Abercrombie and Fitch, well-known retail brand, and it's a stock that you like as well. How come?
Yeah, so the theme here today for us is really just, you've got good valuation with companies that have had, good, consistent growth in recent years, and they kind of have that brand momentum. So Abercrombie is, top of the list. The company had a pretty significant pullback from their, 52-week high or 2-year high. And we think valuation here is really appealing. It trades under 10 times forward earnings. And they continue to do everything right. Obviously, they have a little more exposure to the U.S. than a lot of, the big public companies. I think about 80% of their sales come from the U.S., which is, a little bit higher than I think the average across the sub-industry. So they've been hurt in terms of valuation because of that. But we think right here, a lot of the risk has been priced in, and there's very little risk to the downside because, they've done everything right over the past few years. They've been the first to kind of use that social media marketing grassroots campaign where they use social media influencers to really put their product, first and foremost to their consumers. And they've got a product that consumers, younger generations like. So we really like the name here.
Okay, I want to zero in on Lululemon, which is a company we cover quite closely as well, given its Canadian roots. And it felt like for the longest time, at least in the eyes of investors, Lulu could do no wrong. It's been a struggling a couple of years here, I would say. And you're looking at that situation, the performance of the stock, the performance of the business, and what do you see now?
Yeah, so this stock's been hurt in recent years. I think inventory has gotten a little out of control, which they're working on. And then newness, a lot of the, investors and analysts have worried in recent, quarters about, newness of their products and innovation. They lost their product officer, a couple of months ago. And I think, for us, the valuation here is a no-brainer. It's trading, below some department stores, but they've got plenty of, growth runway in terms of international growth. I think, it's been under pressure also because of tariffs and their exposure to the U.S. and North America. They get, the majority of their sales from North America more than the rest of the sub-industry does. And I think what they're going to do in quarters to come is they're going to really push international growth to kind of insulate themselves from these, the tariffs in the U.S. And I think valuation here, it's another one of those where a lot of the risk has been priced in, and it's just a consistent company with a really good management team, and they've done well, basically in any macro environment, and I think they will continue to do well here.
Okay, and then finally, Urban Outfitters. People are going to be familiar with the brand. I've always found it to be a very interesting case study in that you've still got the founder leading the ship. This is a business that got started when he was still in college. It was almost like a bit of an experiment. And even their store designs over the years have been studied as really sort of models within the industry on how to get people excited about shopping and buying. So when you look at Urban Outfitters as an investment today, what do you see?
Yeah, so this is a little bit different than our first two. Their multiple has kind of expanded in recent years and in recent quarters. They traded below 10 times for a long time. That multiple has expanded to 13 or 14. And we really like, we went on an upgrade after this recent earnings because of the pullback. They've got Free People as their, kind of their growth brand. They're opening lots of Free People stores. And that's kind of helped lead growth. And then they've got Anthropologie, and then obviously their namesake brand, Urban Outfitters. But we really like their first two brands. Free People and Anthropologie have been, on a growth tear for over a year now. We think that will continue as they open more stores. And we think Urban Outfitters, their namesake brand, will stabilize. And we do think that they deserve a higher multiple than peers because of their growth and their margin profile. And, in recent years, they have executed much better than they had in previous years. So we really like the company. It's another, it's got a great balance sheet. They're growing. They have grown in recent years. And we think, these three companies are great picks in this environment.
All right. Great perspective. Nice to have you back with us, Zachary. Zachary Warring from the CFRA team on three retail names to watch. And just to recap, those are A&F, Abercrombie, Lululemon, and Urban Outfitters.